Welcome to Immigration Insider with your host, Attorney John Nicelli. This podcast is an educational forum on how to deal with complex aspects of immigration and pitfalls to avoid. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, johnnicelli.com. Now here's the host of Immigration Insider, Attorney John Nicelli.
Hi, everyone. My name is John Nicelli. I am an immigration attorney in New York City. I've been practicing immigration law approximately 43 years. And today I would like to give some information out to people who may get arrested by the new law enforcement and ICE enforcement policies and activities of what they're getting involved with. So if you know someone that gets arrested by ICE, or if you get arrested by ICE, there are certain things that you can do, and it's not always hopeless. First of all, I would like to bring to many people's attention that many of the people that are being arrested are not only in the country illegally, but they have old orders of deportation, old orders of removal. They may not be aware of it, but it exists. And the reason why it exists, a common reason, is that many people have crossed through the Mexican border. And when they get stopped at the Mexican border in the past, many times because there was no bed space to house them, they get released. And after they're released, the documents that they have, that they're given, and that ICE prepares, that the Border Patrol prepares rather, is that they're supposed to appear at an immigration judge's hearing sometime down the road, usually a month or two later, and wherever that may be, whether it's Texas, Arizona, or California. What happens is that many people don't speak the language, and they're not spoken to in the language that they understand, even though they're supposed to be, and they're just given these papers in English, say sign here, and they get out. So people are very happy to be released because, they're not being detained and their dream came true. They reached the American shores and came here, and now they're going to start life anew. But they don't realize, and some realize, but most don't, is that they're required to go to an immigration hearing to see an immigration judge. So what happens is they leave wherever they're detained, and they usually come to the East Coast or the Midwest, and they go throughout the United States. And they never bother to find out if those papers mean anything. So as a result, they don't attend their court proceedings when they're supposed to. And really, if you think about it, if you receive papers from a government agency, you should at least look at the papers or have someone else look at them and say, what do these papers mean? Because I don't really understand. Give it to somebody that does understand, or go to an attorney that can probably try to help you. But many people know that those, if they are served any papers, most of the time means that, wow, they may have to go to court, or that may mean that they've been deported or will be deported. And they don't want to hear that. So they just want to stay because they paid so much money to come here. So that's definitely a problem, okay, for many people. And many of the people, as I said, have orders of removal that they're not even aware of, because what happens is that many times people give an address that they plan to go to, and they may never go to that address, or they give an address that they do go to, but they only stay there for a short amount of time. As a result, by the time immigration or the immigration court sends them a letter as to their last known residence, of which is what was put on their original papers, so they get the notice, but they're not there because they moved, and they never get the notice. The notice gets sent back to the court, and the immigration court will deport them anyway because they didn't show up in court. So that's definitely a problem for people. And many of those people have been here for many years because immigration now didn't find them or didn't even look for them. Now, under the new enforcement actions, immigration is looking for many people. And many of those people have old orders of removal. So when they do find them through many means, and they find them through tax records, they find them through driver's license records, they find them through the internet, using social media such as Facebook and different things. And they do actually check like Facebook or Instagram, see if people have accounts, and they try to match up the information. And then once they find that person, they will make an effort to go find them and arrest them. And when they do arrest them, if people have old orders of removal, many times they cannot do anything because they may not be eligible for anything. For example, if they came here and they've been here even for 10, 15, even 20 years, but they have no family members here, they never got married, they never were sponsored to a job, they just have nothing pending, they just came and worked. Well, then basically there's nothing you could do for them, and that immigration will just proceed with the order of deportation or removal that they have, depending on what year it was, and they will just send them back to whatever country they're from. So that's a big problem. There's another group of individuals that immigration is arresting who may or may not have orders of removal, and those people are those who have committed crimes. So many times people get arrested for such as domestic violence, they may get arrested for drunk driving, they may get arrested for even being involved with the sale of drugs or the use of drugs. Those are other issues, okay, which present problems. So many times they have criminal convictions, but for whatever reasons they were released, never went into immigration's custody, and as a result, immigration never looked for them. Now, immigration is going through all those old records and is trying to find people with basically almost any kind of criminal record. And even sometimes when charges have been reduced or charges have been even dismissed, immigration may still go looking for that person. So that's another very large group of people that are being arrested. Now, when you're detained, depending on your situation, if you don't have an old order of removal, then there's generally things that we can do. And if you do have an old order of removal, let's say you have an order of removal, and during the time that you've been here, you got married, you have children here, you have a life here, maybe you own a house, and maybe many factors. Maybe you have a handicapped child or a handicapped parent or spouse. All those factors sometimes will allow you to try and file what they call a motion to reopen the deportation proceedings or removal proceedings. And basically you're going to tell a judge what happened, that maybe you never understood the notice, you never read the notice. I've had cases where people's names have actually been forged on documents because the people were released without signing anything. So someone else signed, and then they have a handwriting expert that verifies that they never signed anything. So if they never signed anything, how are those papers theirs? They're really not. They were never properly served. So that would be grounds to reopen the case. And there's many other grounds, too many grounds to mention in this short video that we're doing. But let's assume you don't have an order of removal and immigration finds you and they arrest you. So it all depends on many factors whether you could be released. Let's assume you don't have a criminal record. So if you get detained, the normal processing right now is once you're detained in basically any city or any place in the United States, you're probably going to be detained at least 2 to 3 weeks or even longer before you can see an immigration judge. And when you see an immigration judge and for removal proceedings, at that point, most of the time, with few exceptions right now, you can file for an immigration bond. A bond means that you can pay a bond once a judge allows you to get a bond. And when you pay the bond, you would be released. Now, the issue is, are you entitled to a bond, and how much the bond is, and what are you going to do when you get released? So some of the criteria for immigration judges to consider when they issue a person a bond is, one, is that person a flight risk? That's critical, because if they think you're never going to show up for another immigration hearing, you're not going to get a bond. Also, is that person a threat to the community? Do you have a criminal record? Maybe you're a person of violence. You've used weapons in the past. You stabbed somebody. You shot somebody. Or you've been involved in all kinds of crimes in the past for which you haven't been turned over to immigration's custody. And now that they have you, they're not likely to release you, and they'll oppose any bond that the judge may be willing to give. And if the judge grants a bond, they'll probably appeal the decision, which means you're going to probably stay detained. Another issue is, are you a threat to yourself? Do you have any mental issues? Do you have anything that could possibly make you a danger to yourself or someone else in your household or your community? So these are the three major factors that a judge will consider. But if you are entitled to a bond, then there's other things that a judge will consider. One, they'll consider, how did you enter the United States? Did you enter by fraud, using false documents, or did you enter crossing the border, never hid anything, gave your true name, gave your true address, and just never got called, or for some reason never received any notice, which is very possible also. Or maybe you have no record at all. Immigration just found you somewhere, that you're working at a job site somewhere, and they raided the job site and they arrested all the workers, or most of the workers, and they put you in proceedings. So if they put you in proceedings in that situation, and you have no history of criminal activity, the chances are you could probably get a bond. Now, again, it depends on what would you present to the judge. So you have family members. Maybe you have a spouse, a parent, or children who are residents or citizens. They take into consideration how many years you've been in the United States. They want to know if you have long-term employment. Do you have sporadic employment, no employment? A critical issue is, have you paid taxes and worked in the United States? So if you haven't paid taxes, that really leans on whether you're a person of good moral character, because you're working, and if you're working, you're supposed to pay taxes. If you don't do it, that could be a potential problem. Also, the amount of taxes you paid. Let's say you work in construction and you make $400 or $500, $800 a week, or $1,000 a week. Say you make $52,000 a year. And then on your tax return, you say, I only made $5,000. And I've seen cases like this. I only made $10,000. What happens is, when you go to court, the judge will ask you, how much is your rent? How much is your car expense if you have a car? What's your insurance policies? Do you have health insurance? Okay, so they ask you what your expenses are. And if you're only showing you make $5,000 or $6,000, basically you got a problem, because they're not going to believe anything you say if you don't pay your taxes. So many people don't want to pay tax, but they should pay tax. If you're working, you're supposed to pay tax. Now, another thing the judge will ask you, okay, sir, or madam, or child, whoever it is, if I were to release you, what do you intend to do? Hopefully you'll have an application pending for something. So maybe you're here more than 10 years, you have family members here, you may have family that has some kind of disabilities, or you have kids that have special needs, you have parents with special needs. So if you can show hardship, extreme and unusual hardship, to your parents or minor children under 21, and you're here more than 10 years, and you paid your taxes and been a person of good moral character, you're probably eligible for cancellation of removal, so you'll be able to file that application before the court. Now, a lot of people say, no, I'm not eligible for that because I don't have family members, or I'm not here long enough. So I just want to file for asylum, which was, under the old days, you could probably file for asylum. Now that's changed, because the Trump administration has made an agreement with a number of countries, and one of them is Uganda, to take people back from the United States who don't want to go back to their countries. So let's say you're from the Soviet Union. You're somewhere in Europe. You're from Montenegro. You're from Mexico. You're from Nicaragua. So the government will tell you, judge, when you file, or you tell the judge you want to file, even at a bond hearing, what you intend to file, the government will probably say, judge, if they file for asylum, they're really not eligible, because now we have these agreements with third countries that are willing to take any asylees from the United States. So that could be a problem, and it probably won't work in these days, because there are people that are being sent, believe it or not, to foreign countries where they have absolutely no ties whatsoever. They say they don't want to go to their country, whatever country that is. They say, okay, Uganda will take you, or maybe Honduras will take you, or maybe El Salvador will take you, but some other country is likely to take you. And whatever the agreement is that we have, they're already accepting people who have been deported from the United States. So those are big problems. So you have to have something that's viable, such as a case like cancellation of removal. If you have no family here, it's highly unlikely that you'd be eligible for a bond. But if you were lucky enough to get a bond, then what would happen is you'd post the bond, have someone post the bond for you, and then you'd be later scheduled for another hearing before an immigration judge somewhere down the road, and depending what city or state you're in, because the time periods vary greatly between different jurisdictions. Another thing you'd want to show at a bond hearing is letters from family, letters from friends, letters from coworkers, letters from employers, letters from anyone that can really justify that you're a good person, you've never committed any crimes, you're a very hard worker, you support your family, you're involved in community activities, you volunteer your time, different things like that. So you want to really show that you've done the right thing while you're here. Also, what's your education level? Have you gone to school? Have you gotten a college diploma? Have you gotten a high school diploma? Whatever it may be. Showing family photos together, different occasions, maybe your children's birthday parties or their graduation from schools or different things. There's many things that you can show, but pretty much those are the basics. So if you are detained, what's important to remember, it may not be hopeless, okay? And expect to be detained for at least 2 to 3 weeks before you can see an immigration judge and actually have a bond hearing. Another problem we've been experiencing is that if they detain you, say, in New York City, that doesn't mean you're going to stay detained in New York City or New Jersey. What they'll do is they may send you to California. They may send you to Louisiana. They may send you to somewhere in Texas where they have large facilities to hold many people who have entered the country illegally and have deportation proceedings. If that happens, it's probably best to get local counsel there, because if you have an attorney like myself to go to Texas, the cost would probably be very high, and it might be cheaper and for your benefit if you found local counsel. But if you do get detained, as I said, it's not the end of the world. There is hope. If you've done the right thing in the United States and your only real offense is entering the country illegally, there's a good chance that you would be able to get a bond, get released, hopefully apply for something that you're eligible for. Many times people enter for tourist visas and just overstayed the tourist visa, yet they're married to a citizen or their children are U.S. citizens over 21 years old and never filed for them. I've had cases like that. And I tell them, why didn't you ever file? Oh, we just never got around to it. That's really inexcusable, because if there's a means of you becoming legal, by all means, take the opportunity and do it before it's too late. Now things are really getting out of hand. As most of you can see what's going on in Minneapolis and other states. It's really an outrage, the way people are being arrested. They've arrested American citizens, they've detained American citizens, and it's totally out of hand. But all I can say is if that similar operations come to your city, and even for the people of Minneapolis, protest as much as you can, but protest without violating the law. There is no excuse to attack an ICE agent or a police officer or a border patrol person or anyone else. There's absolutely no excuse for violence. And if you want to accomplish the goal, you have to lawfully protest. When you start breaking the law, throwing bottles or all kinds of things at police who are trying to do their job, now you've crossed the line, and now the purpose of your protesting is totally lost. So if you're going to protest, protest peacefully. And with that, I would say, I wish everyone good luck. Hopefully you don't get arrested. God forbid you do. Please feel free to call my office at 212-227-8020. And if we can help you, we will be the number one to help you. Thank you very much.
You've been tuning into Immigration Insider with your host, attorney John Nicelli. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, johnnicelli.com. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others.